What's up, my beautiful people? Exile451 here with yet another daily dose of Reddit Happy. Going back into r/AskReddit today, so let's get to it. Alright, so a funny one here that I'm sure every parent out there can relate to. Parents of Reddit, were there ever times where you were legitimately worried your offspring might be too dumb to survive? Not a parent, but when my sister was 12-ish, she was on a soccer team. And at one of her games, the ball was right there for her to kick. And she was so excited that she tried to kick it with both feet at the same time. That's not gonna end well. When I was 11 or something, my dad and I were leaving Best Buy, and there were those large concrete pillars that are about waist height to prevent cars from driving/backing into the store. As we're about to pass, I yelled, "Dad, watch this!" and start running at one of them. The idea was to put both of my hands on top of it and vault over it with my legs, landing safely on the other side and impressing my dad. Nope, my little arms weren't strong enough to support my weight like that. So they gave way, and I completely smashed my groin on the pillar. Due to the momentum from running, my chest scraped across the top of the pillar. I flipped heels over head and landed on the other side, crying and curled up in the fetal position. Then I started vomiting all over myself. My dad was chuckling pretty hard when he came over to make sure I was okay and helped me up. I can only imagine that he thought I wouldn't make it to 12. I don't think I ever had a reaction that bad, but I'm pretty sure I did something similar. Follow up on that one. My father, brother, and myself were all at my local YMCA waiting on my sister who was doing community service there for their Halloween event. It was misty outside, so there was condensation on everything. My brother, being the bright soul that he is, decided to walk on the parallel bars in the playground area. Sure enough, he got about halfway through and slipped. Balls smashed, and I swear he slow motion fell to the ground. My dad just walks over, looks down, and says, "You banged your goobers, didn't you?" As my brother is writhing in agony, holding his crotch on the ground. Okay, guys out there, show of hands, who did this when they were a kid? Obviously not intentionally, but who did this? I know I did. Every guy has at least one story from growing up where he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to have kids because of his own actions causing an immense amount of pain for him down there. Oh my gosh, Oh, this one rings home for guys, I'm sure. There's a follow-up comment to this one, though, that I really agree with. You banged your goobers, didn't you? I'm so excited to see someone get hit in the nuts so I can use this phrase. Me too. The second time, my 4-year-old son decided to steal a knife to remove plug covers, then made sparks. The first time, he zapped himself, and I thought, good, now he'll stop. Nope. Edit, he's outside as we speak, seeing how high into the air he can throw rocks. He's now 7. Oh, kids. Follow up on that one? One of my parents' favorite stories about my brother is similar. My brother was about 3 years old, give or take. He was happily playing in his room when my parents look in. He's sitting in front of the electrical socket about to stick his finger in. My parents say, "No, don't do that, it'll hurt." My brother looks at them and says, "I know." He's still happily doing stupid crap 16 years later. He's fun to hang out with. Oh my gosh. That reminds me of the brother that's just under me. When he was in middle school, he decided he was going to ride his bike down a particularly steep hill close to where he ended up going to high school later. And it wasn't a mountain bike, it was just like some BMX bike or something like that, thinking that he was going to be all cool and it was going to look amazing and everything else. Well, it went about as well as you think. I wasn't there, but from what I've been told, he got about 5-6 feet down the hill before bike hits rock, he flies over the handlebars and goes tumbling down the rest of it. Ended up breaking his collarbone in the process and barely avoided having to have surgery because it was that bad. He still does stupid crap. I love him, but sometimes I just wonder if all the lights are turned on up there. Granted, I still do stupid stuff myself, so I can't really talk, but I never would have ridden a BMX bike down a mud hill, that's for sure. When I was 9, there were 2 clubs in town, the Upper Road Gang and the Lower Road Gang, named after the roads we lived on, which started at a common point and ran parallel, more or less, while one gained elevation and the other gradually declined. We were the Upper Road kids, and every Saturday morning, one gang would try to attack and control the other gang's main base in the Apple Wars. Lower Road had a barn, Upper Road had a treehouse. We both had an abundance of apple trees from which to pick ammunition. Well, one week, one of the kids, Brad, from the Lower Road, threw a really hard young apple, frowned upon by the Amberfields Convention, at point-blank range right into my eye. He continued to repeat using the questionable ammunition at point-blank range until overcome by my allies. I was left with a black eye and several goose eggs on my head. I issued a statement that the following week's Apple Wars would be postponed while we gathered equivalent ammunition to replace our ripened soft stockpiles. The Lower Road Gang responded that if we acted on this threat, they would switch to rocks, thereby disregarding the Amberfields Convention entirely and engaging in an illegal conflict. In response to that, the Upper Road threatened to use any manner of weapons available and warned the Lower Road Gang that if they crossed onto our street at all, wooden and rock weapons would be given the green light. So I built my own bow and arrow. Saturday morning came and our scouts rushed back, reporting movement. Lower Road was on the charge. We fell back to our strategically superior high ground, into the treehouse. As soon as they were in range, the Lower Road army began hurling all manner of rocks and apples and crudely fashioned spears. I spotted Brad, I drew my bow, and I let loose the arrow that would end the wars once and for all. To his credit, he didn't scream like a girl, rather cursed like a sailor as manly as a 4th grade boy is capable. A homemade arrow lodged several inches into his thigh. The armies scattered. Once the parents became aware of the Apple Wars, they seized control of our armies and put a stop to the conflict with totalitarian rule for a time. The oppressive government eventually grew weak and the armies remobilized, but this time united against their common enemy. And he followed that up with, I forgot my point along the way, caught up in reminiscing. Point is, I'm not sure how any of us survived at all. We're all in the 28 to 30 range now. The Amberfields Convention. Oh, to grow up in the days before technology like that, when these were the sorts of things that would happen. Oh gosh, I remember back when I was in like 4th grade-ish, I think. This was during a brief period where we'd moved out of California to a Mountain West state. So, we got a lot of snow. And we had the Icicle Wars, where we had gangs of kids from like church or the cul-de-sacs or whatever hoard up icicles, and then we would try to steal each other's stashes. And it got pretty violent. It actually escalated out of control with some pretty intense bullying that has actually left scars to this day. But that's a whole different story for several therapists. Yeah, but man, that takes me back. Not the most pleasant time in my life, but I do have some fond memories of living there. When I was 10 years old, my best friend and I were enthralled by Christian Barnard doing a heart transplant. So, as up-and-coming mad scientists with a small lab in the garage, we decided we would do a heart transplant on bullfrogs. As my pediatrician was unwilling at the time to give us sodium pentobarbital for an anesthetic, I did ask nicely, but she insisted that was not going to happen, and why did I want it? At which point I hung up. My friend liberated a can of ether from the middle school chemistry lab. Having obtained 2 bullfrogs from the local pond that seemed to respond nicely to anesthesia, tested by pinching their toe webbing, as indicated in the 30-year-old biology textbook we were using as source material for the surgery, we happily sterilized our instruments, a junior dissection kit my parents had bought me, figuring I would limit it to preserved grasshoppers and such, in the flame of a Bunsen burner, which was to the left of the ether, which, still open, was to the left of one of the frogs. Wearing gloves and dust masks and wielding our sterilized instruments, we managed to open up the frogs without too much blood. The ice we packed around them helped a lot. Found the hearts beating nicely, tied off the major blood vessels with fishing line, although I had to remove my gloves to do it as they were rubber washing gloves and not too flexible. So much for sterile technique. Removed the hearts and swapped them between us, preparing to save the froggies' lives with their newly transplanted hearts. Just one problem. Neither one of us knew how to sew, and this was before the days of superglue. Being 10, we argued about the best thing to do, and had just decided that electrical tape would probably hold everything together until the frogs could heal. when my frog on the left started to inconveniently throw off the ether and twitch, twitching its foot into the ether hard enough to pour it onto the table towards the Bunsen burner. Ether does not have to actually touch... Ether does not have to actually touch flame. The vapors were enough. My friend yelled, tackled me, and we hit the floor just as the huge fireball hit the roof of the garage. After a few seconds, we crawled out the back of the garage and ran for my house. Several hours of hiding in my garage later, the door slides upward and my brother's face appears and he screams, "I told you he wasn't dead! He's hiding!" My mother, who had been on the phone with my friend's mother, who was sure we were dead since the garage was a smoking ruin, was trying to do the incredibly angry, crying, screaming thing. My father just looked at me and my friend, shook his head, and gave us a lesson on how to use fire extinguishers, which he regretted a few days later when we decided that fire extinguishers might be just what we needed to turbocharge our go-kart. Gosh. I had so many takes where I was laughing too hard to continue reading, and I just had to start over after about a minute straight of laughing through that. Oh my gosh. That was r/AskReddit, and if you want more funny or uplifting AskReddit content, then go ahead and check out the playlist link in the description below. Now you guys go out there, have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow. Until then, I'm Exile451. Stay beautiful, people.